One of the questions that people ask most when it comes to Jewish belief is what happens after I die? But that is actually a relatively marginal question within the Jewish tradition. The Jewish tradition normally thinks about itself as an answer to the question of how do I live a good and meaningful life, rather than the question, how do I gain salvation and immortality? So redemption is a secondary idea, and there are a large range of non-binding beliefs associated with it. So let me chart out a schematic of how it is that the redemptive process unfolds according to a number of Jewish texts. But it's always important to remember that these aren't binding. Nobody actually has to believe these. These are not the Jewish beliefs. So they start from the idea that human beings are actually indivisible, as there is no body and soul, but the human being is a human in and of the whole body and self. Now that's going to become important, as we see in this traditional way in which redemption is understood. What it means is that when somebody dies, they're dead. The soul doesn't depart and go to heaven and live an independent life. You're just dead. And the way that you're going to get ultimately immortality and that redemption will occur will be on this communal level. The communal kind of redemption starts with a Messiah. A Messiah is a figure, anointed, quite literally. That's what Messiah means, an anointed one. Not divine, but a person who simply serves as a messenger to say that this end conflict, the end of time, is on its way. That's followed by some period of conflict in which maybe good and bad are pitted against each other, in which a good wins. But at that point, God actually sets the end of time. And when that occurs, the bodies are resurrected. That's meant to be taken quite literally in many of these traditional texts. As bodies actually come out of the ground, they may or may not be refleshed, and they are given back their thought and those things, those qualities, those cognitive qualities that make them human. Because only then, right, can the body actually be judged. Because now you come back to life. So that actually is followed then by judgment, right? And this goes on the notion that God is just, that everyone will get their just deserts eventually. This is where it happens. So if you've been bad in your life and you die without being punished, this is the time when justice is administered. It's kind of interesting because from that point on, there's eternal life, but there's actually no agreement on what that eternal life looks like. On the one hand, there are utopian visions that look towards some time or situation that never existed. For example, one could think of a society without bodies, right? Or something that we can't even imagine, some kind of heaven. Or, on the other hand, there's this restorative notion that we go back to some time in the mythic past. For example, we all live as we're in the Garden of Eden, or the time when the first temple stood. And there are different notions of where that restorative point should end. But in all cases, this is the process as it unfolds in the traditional text. Now, of course, most Jews today, at least many Jews today, don't fully believe in that process or in all parts of that process. And there are many Jews who believe that eternal life comes in memory. And that maybe ultimately there is no final judgment. Or that in fact the body has a soul, and that soul is what lives on. So there are different notions that are expressed in different Jewish communities, and in some ways it's very hard to generalize about them.